Alright, looks like it's streaming. Had a little hiccup when we first started, but that's okay. Oop. Let's see. Cancel this thing. Krampus is trying to get in. He is a very terrible little baby. Alright. So if you guys want to let me know if anyone is able to see this, please do. And while you guys are able to catch up to this, because I know there's a bit of a lag, I'm going to go ahead and just check on the Discord and then maybe have something to drink. Let's see. All right. Let's see. So now, there's way too many things open. So that would be it. All right. Cool. Munger is joining us. Awesome. All right. So we are last talking about the Book of Enoch when we last talked about the Book of Enoch, we had talked about the angels or the watchers basically asking Yahweh, can you please, please, please make sure that, you show some mercy to us? And Yahweh was just giving all of these really creative insults, and then issuing some really interesting psychological torture on these watchers. What are your guys' opinion, for those of you that have been with the other two live streams or that have watched the live streams or the overviews? What are your guys' opinion on the watchers? Do you think that I'm looking, at something that's not there and trying to overly sympathize with them, or do you see it as well that they were almost like a pitiful type of thing? A hipster hat, really? I don't remember how old you are, Ratza. This is one of these like beatnik hats from like the 50s, if you were gonna go with that, or a beret, which but a hipster hat, my goodness, that is one thing I think I've only ever been called twice in my life as a hipster. Yeah, I was just going for a 90s look today. So, I've got my coffee, I've got my black turtleneck, and like one of these spaghetti strap kind of dresses. I don't know if you guys can see it very well. Let me see if it's showable. Yeah, this spaghetti strap type of dress, and I was going very, very 90s vibe today. Yeah. So Lee Spanner, looks like your thing was blocked. I think I'll show it, but I'm not sure what that word is. So let me just double check. Remember, we do want to keep this a bit, well, I don't think that's the word you meant. Maybe we're looking for a Yiddish word, because what you had talked about, the word that was used is actually a word that shows up for like Native American tribes. But yes, that he is a nut job in the older text for sure. Yeah, French beret. It's a joke. No, it's not that I think that you are insulting me by saying hipster hat. I was just saying that I don't know why I would be called a hipster. I've just never heard this being called a hipster hat. That's all. Yes. I think the reason that it blocked it was not for that. I think the reason it blocked it because you said nut job. So I had to censor some words on my channel just to try to, again, make it child friendly, or at least teenager friendly. And so I think that's why nut ended up getting blocked. Not a native English speaker, I can do what I want with the language. That's fair. One of the students one of the English teachers shared it with me. The student had made up another word. It had to do with prisons. It was like prisonotic, something like that. But it sounded really good, and we were just like, you know what, this is a real word now. All right. So how are you guys feeling about the Watchers? How are you feeling about Yahweh? So Lee said that Yahweh is, of course, a nut job. Yes, I definitely would agree. Not just in the 5 books of Moses, but I would agree just kind of everywhere. And then, Jesus doesn't do much better, I would say. Even when I was a Christian, reading through the New Testament and stuff, I never felt like he was a particularly nice individual. A lot of people have this idea that they, Jesus modeled these good ideas for us, and I tend to disagree. I'm not saying that 100% was bad. I'm just saying he seemed kind of like a regular guy that got frustrated at times for regular human stuff. I am going to take a second to wipe my nose. My goodness, I am so... Now you guys can kind of see how often I have to deal with this. When I make videos and I have to do that, I just stop the video. But now having to do with these live streams in the winter, I think you guys can see how frustrating this is. Because this happens to me all day long, and it's very, very annoying. The Watchers are hard done by. That's what I think. I'm thinking that. So Lee, my name is also Lee. And so I think that Sovereign Soul was talking to me with a hi, Lee. But you can definitely respond too, because you are also Lee. So we're both Lee. We're double Lee. Doubly what? All right. Never a Christian, just an ex-Orthodox Jew. That might be why I haven't heard of that phrase before. Is it Chumash or Shumash? Is that how you pronounce that CH? I've heard of it as, the Pentateuch would be those 5 books. That's how I think that's the Greek version of that word. So maybe that's why I hadn't heard of it that way. Let's see. Is anyone needing any questions on the first couple books? Yahweh seemed like a control freak. Let your Watchers get freaky with human ladies. All right. No, there was one thing that somebody had asked about in one of the comments, and I did want to talk about that for a second as well. They had said, if Yahweh didn't want them to have relations with humans, then that seems like a design oversight. Why would he create them with human-compatible body parts if he never intended them to have these kind of relations with humans? And so I did want to touch on that. In the, I guess, Abrahamic context of like angel mythology, angels appear to humans in human form, in the form of beautiful men. We've seen this when they appeared to wrestle with Jacob, when they appeared in Sodom and Gomorrah, when they appeared to Lot. This is how they appear in human form. So the Watchers' actual true angelic form, so far we haven't discussed that. That hasn't been described at all. They appear to have limbs because, remember, they are bound and their hands and their feet are bound. So they do appear to have some type of limbs, but that's kind of where we can stop. We don't really know the rest of how they look. How many wings do they have, if they have wings? Are they covered in eyeballs like a lot of the other angels? It doesn't really describe that just yet. But when they appeared to the humans, they had taken on human form, and that's why they were able to reproduce with humans. So it wasn't that Yahweh had designed them as angels with that, but that he designed all angels, it appears, from this type of mythology, with the ability to take on a human form. Why he would allow that if he doesn't want them interacting, I'm not sure. The archangels seem to have some type of messenger job, so for them to be able to take on human form, that kind of makes sense. But for the other angels, like the Watchers, the other classes or levels of angels, it doesn't really explain why. Especially since the cherubim, for example, when they are seen by humans, they're described as very outlandish, covered in different, 6 wings and covered in eyes and have multiple heads or multiple faces on a single head. So they don't have a human form as far as we're able to tell. People are able to see them that way, so I don't know why the Watchers would necessarily need a human form, especially if that's all they were supposed to be doing is just watching, you know. So that, of course, would be sort of a problem. The other thing that's sort of interesting, too, is that if they took on human form and then they were able to reproduce with human women, that means that their, basically their semen would have been human semen. And so why was it able to produce such a wildly ridiculous outcome of an offspring, these 3.4 kilometer tall giants, right? And so that's sort of an interesting idea. And it kind of goes back to this concept of Yahweh creating humans in his image. If Yahweh doesn't have a human body, then how are we created in his image? And so there's some ideas there about the soul, that we're spiritual beings in a human casing. Yahweh's a spiritual being. That's how we're created in his image. So this might sort of maybe have made sense to people within that religion at the time, that perhaps there was some sort of life essence or soul essence that was part of the reproductive act, and part of the act of conception, that perhaps there was some kind of soul essence that got imbued into this embryo from the father and from the mother. And if the father's soul essence is celestial and the mother's soul essence is human, perhaps this is what happened. So that, of course, is just speculation on my part, because it doesn't go into it in depth. But that is, one thing to consider, how this seems very illogical on its face to us if we were trying to take this literally, but trying to see it as someone from that religious background, what might they explain it away as? And so those are some of the ideas that they may use. So far, Yahweh seems to have an omniscience malfunction. I would agree with that. I would definitely agree, because, for someone who knows everything and is everywhere, it's odd that he didn't know what the Watchers were going to do. And then, there is some discussion that perhaps the idea of Yahweh knowing everything is because he has so many, I want to say Watchers, but I don't mean the Watchers. He has so many workers watching things for him. And so that would be the different classes of angels, or certain humans on earth that are very righteous and maybe have a direct prayer line to him and can notify him immediately of something going on. So it's might be this concept of, like, if we think of the mafia and how the mafia godfather, that leader in the mafia, that might have, that kind of tells you, I know everything, I am everywhere, I see everything. That person isn't being literal. They're not literally saying, I see everything, but they are saying, I have people everywhere and you won't know who is who. Remember, the angels can even take on human form, let alone the fact that they're able just to see the earth from heaven, right? So this idea that perhaps Yahweh is like a godfather, that he's not literally omnipresent and literally omniscient, but that he's figuratively omniscient and figuratively omnipresent, because he has so many eyes and ears out there. So that's another way to sort of think about it. This concept of like a totally 100% benevolent, 100% just, 100% merciful kind of God in a very literal way is a little bit more new, as is the idea of Jesus literally being the Son of God, if you want to talk about a related religion of Christianity. And so these are not older concepts. These are not concepts that perhaps the ancient people had considered, that God was literally omnipresent. So they may have humanized him a lot more than we actually are giving them credit for. Because we do talk about how Yahweh appears to be quite human, or the gods that we create in different polytheist religions, for example, they are pretty human. Perhaps they humanize them far more, in that they weren't actually super duper omnipresent, everything, but in fact were just like a king, where they had a lot of people working for them and could effectively be omnipresent, but actually are not omnipresent. That would explain a lot of stuff that's going on in the Bible, wouldn't it? that would explain why there's things that happen that Yahweh seems to be unaware of until someone notifies him. This book of Enoch is a perfect example that nobody knew what was going on Earth in terms of the Watchers interacting with the humans until a bunch of souls were clamoring at the gates of heaven saying, you gotta do something, there's a bunch of giants on Earth, we don't know what's going on. And that's when the angels the archangels realized it, and that's when they notified Yahweh. So Yahweh had no idea this was actually going on. It starts to become obvious in the 5 books that Yahweh is not always in control of creation. He doesn't appear all-powerful. Right. Why are we talking about sea men all of a sudden? Because I'm a Marine, and that's the Navy relation thing to do, I guess. So for those of you that are listening and not reading, Ratza wrote seaman is S-E-A-M-E-N. Yeah, he's the literal godfather, right? Dustin says 100% merciful, really, yes. So the concept that we have of Yahweh in like a Christian perspective is that he's 100% merciful and also 100% just. Just here is in justice. And as I believe Matt Dillahunty said, and I don't know if he got it from someone else, but I heard it first from Matt Dillahunty, you cannot be 100% merciful and 100% just, because mercy is the suspension of justice, and that's how he phrases it. So if it sounds a little bit confusing to you, basically justice is you get what you deserve because you made a mistake, and this is how you pay for it. Mercy is you made a mistake and you should pay for it, but I'm not going to give you what you deserve. I'm going to not punish you for it. So justice is an appropriate punishment for the crime. Mercy is the recognition of the crime, but not the issuing of the punishment. So how could you recognize there's a crime and then issue the punishment and also not issue the punishment? It's like saying I'm 100% pregnant and 100% not pregnant. I'm 100%, I don't know, I don't think I need to come up with any other examples. So it's, these qualities that are applied to Yahweh, to Jesus, and all of them, these tend to come a little bit later. Yeah. Hopefully that explains it. Were there any other questions that you guys had regarding some of the stuff that perhaps didn't make sense to you as you were reading, and then perhaps you were thinking about it later? For me, sometimes I call it marinating. I let my brain marinate. Hey, you got to marinate everything. I don't know about some people that are not marinating their food. Those people are wrong, okay? I remember growing up, everything that we did at a barbecue, like these big parties we had, everything had to be marinated 24 to 48 hours in advance. And then I went to this, I guess, European white. That's how we want to say it, European white American. This friend of mine, and I just remember her family taking chicken breast out of the package and putting it on the grill, and then I was just like, this is against law, this is sacrilegious, what is going on? I thought they must have made a mistake. What is this? So I was very confused about that as a child. So we want to let things marinate, okay? Gotta let it marinate. That used to get to me, the whole justice versus mercy thing. Yeah, I think that does get to us because it doesn't make sense. And now because it had been adopted later on into this, not necessarily the text, it's not in the text, so it would be the dogma or the interpretation of the text. Because it's been adopted into that, they kind of can't go back and say, well, wait a minute, this actually doesn't make a ton of sense. So instead, the way that it's explained away is, oh, well, mysterious ways, this, that, and the other thing. However, just a reading of the text, it doesn't actually show that. And I remember that was one thing that I really had trouble with as I was studying the Bible. It didn't match a lot of the stuff that was being taught to me in church. And it didn't match a lot of the stuff that I heard from apologists. It didn't match a lot of those things. The reading of the text itself is, I think there were parts of it that don't make sense, but I think it makes a lot more sense to read the text than it does to listen to somebody in a sermon, for example. I think that might be how I want to phrase it. Right, always mysterious ways. Exactly. All right. Well, I think we have had enough backstory here, and I think for when I post this, I'll say something like go to the timestamp 20 minutes if you're wanting to just get into the Book of Enoch. So today we're going to go through the next, 9 chapters-ish, okay? So this is where we're at right now, Enoch's journey through Earth and Sheol, okay? Sheol is the underworld. It is this... you can sort of think about it as proto-hell, if you want. The Christian concept of hell comes from Sheol, okay? We're just going to go through these chapters here, so from chapter 17 to chapter 25, and then we're going to stop. I thought 25 was a good stopping point. All right. So this is Enoch's journeys, and it's going to be pretty interesting. At least I think so. And they took and brought me Enoch, to a place in which there were those who were there were like flaming fire. When they wished, they appeared as men. And they brought me to this place of darkness, and to a point, I'm sorry, I feel like I have to make this even bigger. Let me slow down. Cool. And they brought me to the place of darkness, and to a mountain, the point of whose summit reached to heaven. And I saw the places of the luminaries, and the treasuries of the stars, and the thunder, and the uttermost depths, where a fiery bow and arrows, and their quiver, and a fiery sword, and all the lightning. So let's just make sure we all understand these words. Okay. So the luminaries that we're talking about, these are going to be the brightest planets that you could see from Earth with the naked eye. So Mars, sometimes Jupiter, and Venus for sure. Sometimes Mercury. So this is Enoch basically saying, I see everything in the sky. Okay. At the same time that I see everything, I see lightning, I see the uttermost depths. I see the deepest parts and the highest parts at the same time. So this appears to be quite an interesting mountain, where you can just basically see everything. All right. The quiver here, I know in modern English we talk about quiver, we're thinking like a little shake kind of thing. A quiver in this case is going to be the holder of the arrows. So an arrow holding pouch is called a quiver. So just to make sure we got that. And a fiery sword and all of the lightnings. So it's interesting. We still have a lot of fire, okay? Does anybody have any idea of what this might mean? Or are we thinking it's literally fire? Does anybody have any other interpretation they want to share? Something they've heard? Something that I had heard about fire is not that it's literally fire, but it's so bright, it's blinding, as if you're looking at an intense fire. So this is a blindingly light bow and arrows and a quiver and a blindingly light sword. So this is one option. Or it could literally be a sword made of fire. Either way, very metal, right? But these are some of the options here. It could be lava, right? These are some of the other ideas as well. But from what I've heard, fire, as in literal fire, or some kind of holy fire, where it never goes out, that it would be a sword with some kind of ethereal fire on top of it. And even if you put the sword into water, it's still burning. So that's one option. The other option is it's so blindingly light, it's hot to the touch. It's as if it was fire, but it's not fire. So those are the other kind of concepts here. Lasers could be lasers, okay? I don't think Enoch would know what lasers are, so perhaps that's what they are, and he's just talking about them as if they are beams of fire. And they took me to the living waters and to the fire of the west, which receives every setting of the sun. Now, I think this is really interesting because in the Quran, when Muhammad is trying to find where the sun goes, he finds that the sun sets in a pool of muddy water. And this is pretty interesting, isn't it? That we're now talking about a physical place where the sun physically sets. So this definitely is not, round earth kind of situation where we're moving around the sun. And this actually, so the Book of Enoch, as we were talking about before, this was written after the early books in the Bible, but before the before the New Testament. So if we talk about Book of Enoch when written, we want to get that sort of here. So it's the 2nd century BCE, and I'm glad I double checked that because I had misremembered it as the 6th century BCE. But this one guy, oh my gosh, Pata, is that how you pronounce his name? Okay, thank you. So he actually comes later. Okay. So this is actually an interesting mathematician. I thought he was a little bit early. So again, I'm glad that I double checked this. He actually had figured out a lot about the sun and the movement of the stars, why eclipses happen, and why the moon has the same phases all the time. So he's really cool. If we want to talk about like knowing that the earth is not flat, it goes to at least this time period. For sure. So I just wanted to double check if perhaps Enoch maybe could have heard something from that time period. Of course, he definitely didn't. They were separated by 600 years. Yes, bonjour. Oh, pow pow. Did we figure out what the fire arrow things were? Comets or meteors? Living waters, is this where Ray Comfort gets his ministry name from? It could be, but I doubt that Ray Comfort... I don't know. Maybe Ray Comfort has read the Book of Enoch. I don't know why he wouldn't have. I don't know why he would have. So I guess we can't say that. But no, this concept of living waters is reflected at different times in the Bible. If we want to double check that, we can. Living waters. It looks like it's giving us the living things in the waters. So we can check the King James Version. Oh dear, that's not what we want. There we go. Living waters. No, we don't want to retrieve multiple verses. Search for phrases and topics. There we are. So this is the Song of Songs, the SNG here. So Fountain of Gardens, a well of living waters, fountain of living waters, that day living water shall go out from Jerusalem. So one thing that this could mean is moving water, or fresh water. So water of life in that sense. And now we have flat earthers. I know it's a bit odd. The stuff about Aryabhata that he figured out was basically how could the moon have the same exact phases every month? It doesn't make any kind of weird alternative. It doesn't. They're very regular phases, right? They're not. Well, we had this full moon for 12 days straight. That doesn't happen. It doesn't ever. We always have like a moon shaped like this as a crescent, or like this as a crescent. We never have a moon that's this as a crescent. How could this happen? And also if you watch an eclipse, what would be doing that? And that's when he had realized there must be an Earth, a moon, and a sun, and there has to be an interaction between them. And just from understanding that, he was able to figure out, oh, wait a minute, it appears that the Earth might be moving, the moon is moving around us, we are moving around the sun together, and also all of us are spherical. So that was a really interesting concept. And so this was just from observation, and it didn't have anything to do... I mean, he had a lot of advanced mathematics. He was calculating very close to pi, came up with the idea of zero, but this wasn't like, oh, you need, satellites and you need to fly out and observe it with your, as an astronaut working for NASA or the ESA or something like that. This was just, I wonder why that happens. Oh, this only makes sense if it works this way. So it's a very straightforward kind of understanding. So if you ever talk to a flat earther, maybe introduce them to that concept, because that's very easy to follow, very easy to understand. And again, it doesn't take any advanced mathematics. You don't have to be, mastering physics or anything like that. So it's a very helpful thing. All right. So let's see. And I came to a river of fire, in which the fire flows like water and discharges itself into the great sea towards the rest. And I saw great rivers come to the great river and to the great darkness, and went to the place where no flesh walks. I saw the mountains of darkness of winter, and the place whence all waters of the deep flow. I saw the mouths of all the rivers and of the earth, and the mouth of the deep. And I know this sounds like, let's try to figure out, well, what is this river of fire, and what is this, and what is this? If we are to read this all together from verse 3, so we're just reading, here we are. There we go. All of these together. He is at the origin of everything that's happening on earth. So where does fresh water come from? Where does salt water come from? Where does lava come from? Where do the, where can you view all the planets and the stars, and also view all of the canyons and the caves? So he's at like this point where he can just see the start of everything, not the creation of everything. He's not taken to that point in history. He's taken to a point, a physical point on the earth that creates all of this stuff in sort of a steady flow. Okay, it's always winter, but it's always light, and it's always dark, and it's always salty, and it's always fresh, and it's always fiery, but it's also watery. So he's at this point of physical origin of the stuff that we have on the earth, just as a regular cycle. This you could maybe think of as like a manufacturing factory, and it's pumping out this stuff, right? So this is the factory that he's at. That's sort of a way that you can think about it. So we're going to chapter 18 now. And this is again more of what he's seeing. I saw the treasuries of all the winds. I saw how he had furnished with them the whole creation and the firm foundations of the earth. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth, and the four winds which bear the earth, and the firmament of heaven. And I saw how the winds stretch out the vaults of heaven, and how their station between the heaven and the earth are the pillars of heaven. Okay. So again, he's at that point where he can just see all of the creation points on earth. The four winds that we're talking about is the wind from the north, the wind from the south, the wind from the east, and the wind from the west. And so the firmament, that was this belief from the Jewish religion, where there's this old concept of earth, and I think some early Christians also had this concept that earth was this flat disc, and it was covered by a some type of dome. That's the firmament, some type of dome. Doesn't say what it's made out of, but it was covered by that. And then space on the outside of this dome is a liquid. It's water. And so one of the ideas for the flood, the Great Flood, was that part of this firmament was opened. And so the waters from space spilled in, and that's how the earth was flooded. And then the bottom was like almost like a plug being taken out, and then drained out from the bottom back into the space waters. So that is one concept of earth from this Abrahamic religion. I saw the winds of heaven. Oh, let me see what you guys said first. Fun to know that zero is a thing that needs to be invented. Yeah, I was talking to my students about that when we talk about this time period. Zero has to be invented because we don't really need zero until we need to start talking about negative numbers, and we don't need to talk about negative numbers until we need to start with more advanced mathematics, right? I'm not going to explain to if I come home from a day of fishing and I have no fish, no one's going to ask me, how many fish did you catch, right? I have zero fish, right? But I can also just say there are no fish, or I have no fish. I don't need that term of zero, right? And I'm also not going to talk about negative number stuff. I'm not going to say, well, I caught -3 fish. That doesn't make any sense. It could be I caught 3 fish and then I gave 3 away, so I have no fish. I caught 5 fish and I gave 3 away, so I have 2 fish. And that's what I would say. I have 2 fish. I gave 3 away. So the concept of zero and negative numbers, we only really want to do that when we're talking about advanced or more advanced mathematics. So that's why it had to be invented, just because in your everyday life, you're not going to talk about zero. You know, you're just not. Saw the winds of heaven which turn and bring the circumference of the sun and all the stars to their setting. I saw the winds on the earth carrying the clouds. I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth a firmament and the heaven above. And I proceeded and saw a place which burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains of magnificent stones, 3 towards the east, 3 towards the south. And for those towards the east, one of them was a colored stone, one of pearl, and one of jacinth, and which is sort of a, I think it's what, zircon, but it's like reddish. It looks kind of like a garnet kind of color. And towards those of the south, a red stone. But in the middle, one reached to heaven like the throne of God, of alabaster. Alabaster is a stone that's it's a very beautiful white, and then if you carve from it, it ends up looking almost translucent. It's a really gorgeous thing. Let's we can just check it out. Alabaster carving. So you can see here, this is alabaster, and it's really like a hauntingly gorgeous sort of thing. The old windows, especially on these old churches, used to be made out of very thin sheets of alabaster. So you can see this. It's a very beautiful, beautiful kind of stone. Let me see if we have the Egyptian ones, because those are really gorgeous. Obviously these are, you know, older from time, but I've seen some of these. I went to the King Tut exhibit when it was in Korea, and just seeing these guys up close, it's hard to, I guess, catch it on a camera, but again, it's got sort of a, it's almost see-through, almost, in a way, and there's like layers of it. It's sort of like the layers of skin. It's really haunting. So it's not similar to marble or anything. So if you've seen alabaster in person, the concept of an alabaster throne in the middle of all of these shining, blinding flashes of fire and rivers of fire and lightning and visuals from space, you know, your stars and your sun moving around, your planets that you can see, and then there's this alabaster throne in the middle. Just what a sight this would be. This would be a very, even if you have no religious leanings, you would feel as if you're having a religious moment just seeing this. That's like that kind of thing. Yeah, they're really, really beautiful. Is it a type of shade? No. So if you guys are not familiar with this, we can just look at that too, just because we are looking at it. So we're looking up this stone. So again, I think it's a zircon, but it is got sort of this kind of garnet, sort of ruddy red sort of color to it. But when you polish it, it looks a little bit different. But this is what garnet usually looks like before it gets polished really, really well. But it's just kind of beautiful stone. It's almost like a amber looking ruby. Like if ruby and amber had a baby, this is what it would look like, I think, anyway. So it's this really like gorgeous, fiery looking stone. And now this, you know, would be reflecting on that alabaster and just looking just amazing, really amazing. Let's see. And the summit of the throne was of sapphire. And I saw flaming fire, and beyond these mountains is a region, the end of the great earth. There the heavens were completed. And I saw a deep abyss with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure alike towards those, or towards the height and towards the depth. So again, these are really, 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 really big things that he's seeing. There was also this idea of, where's that Bible that the earth suspended? Or no, sorry, that's from the Quran, isn't it? Quran, earth suspended on nothing. created the earth from nothingness. Let's see. Looks like I'm not finding the exact surah of that. But there's a verse in the Quran which says that he suspends the earth on nothing. So there was this idea that the earth is not just a disc, but it's a disc that's held up by these pillars, or held up by nothing, if you read the Quran, as if by magic. So these are the pillars that that Enoch is seeing. So this would have made sense to somebody from this time period, that the idea of this flat earth with its dome held up on these four pillars or what have you, except when he's looking down now, he's seeing a depth that he cannot describe. He's seeing these columns of fire that are, it says that they're rising and falling. I see it more as like an undulating kind of fire. It's this flowing fire of a pillar. And so this fire is kind of coming up and going back down. That's the visual that I get from this. Maybe you guys get a different visual from it. And so as he's looking down into the depths of space water, I guess we could call it, from that belief, as he's looking down into this, he's just seeing these columns of fire that continue down as far as he can see. So he has no idea how far down these are. But it's such an interesting concept. And again, this definitely supports the idea that the Abrahamic religions have a flat earth kind of concept, not a spherical earth concept. Let's see what you guys are writing in the chat. Let's see. Light shade. Yeah, it's got an interesting thing. It's in the Bible. It's Psalms. Thank you. I know it was in the Quran. I thought it was in the Bible too, but I knew it was in the Quran. Yeah, it stretches north over an empty space, right? So there's pillars, and that it's also hanging on nothing. So this is this belief about it, right? So he's talking about these physical pillars of flaming fire. So again, a very interesting sort of visual. And also interesting because we would have no idea, right? And he's still, remember, on the earth. He's not in the heavens. He's on a point in the earth, okay? And so I know that there's some people that have said stuff like, we can disprove the Greek mythology, religion, because if we go onto these places to look for the gods, they're not there. And you could actually apply the same thing to the Abrahamic God, Yahweh. Let's see. Space water, haha. As soon as scientists find water on Mars, Christians would say the Bible said there would be water in space. Well, we already found water on the moon, so I guess they could argue that as well. Let's see. And beyond the abyss, I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. There was no water upon it, no birds, but it was a waste and a horrible place. And I saw there 7 stars like great burning mountains. So these are just like massive stars, not like stars necessarily shaped in a triangle. And to me, when I inquired regarding them, the angel said, this place is the end of heaven and earth. This has become a prison for the stars and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire, for which they have transgressed the commandment of the Lord in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed times. And he was wroth with them, and he bound them till time when their guilt should be consummated, even for 10,000 years. And so when we might think, when you're reading this at first, you might think stars, luminaries, heavens, something, perhaps it's angels. They're literally talking about stars. And it's really interesting to, when you think about, we can actually kind of find a connection here. In the New Testament, when Jesus had condemned the fig tree because it didn't have figs, because it was out of season. And of course, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This, I think, would be kind of related. The idea that the stars are disobeying God. And so that's why he's punishing them. It's also interesting that the stars are burning, and they're also being burned. They're like cooking over this fire as a punishment. Now, if we think about, actual cosmology, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Stars being big, yeah, definitely bigger than mountains, sure. But to punish a star is an interesting concept, first of all. That it's a thing, it's an inanimate thing that seems to have disobeyed Yahweh. And so Yahweh is punishing this fiery thing by rolling it over fire. I'm not sure how that's a punishment, right? Especially since we know the stars burn hotter. So the idea here is a bit strange, right? Even if we think about stars as some other thing, and even if we think about them as angels, which this is pretty clear it's not talking about angels, but if we even think about them as angels, they did not come forth at their appointed times, and so they're going to be punished even for 10,000 years. This would just mean the angel, was late for work, and so we're going to burn him for 10,000 years. My goodness, this is quite a punishment, isn't it? It's quite a punishment. So Yahweh seems to be, and again, there's that idea, if Yahweh had set everything in motion to work well and be functional, then how could a star not show up on time? Wouldn't that be the fault of the programmer and not the program, right? If the programmer wants the program to run smoothly and then the program doesn't, it's not the fault of the program. This is sort of like if you had programmed a game and it didn't work well, so you got really upset and then you destroyed all copies of the game. It's like rage quitting in a way, right? It doesn't make sense. And while you're destroying all copies of the game, you're not doing it out of anger towards yourself, so people don't realize, oh, I'm so stupid, kind of thing. You're doing it to punish the game. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's a very, so what could Enoch even be saying here? It could be basically to convey just how strict Yahweh is, and you have no hope to ever appease him if you do something wrong. Even the stars that he commanded that made a mistake, because he made a mistake in commanding them, it must have been this way, right? That he's going to punish them for 10,000 years. That's pretty intense. Let's see what you guys have said. Maybe Enoch needs rock stars. Stars also have free will. There is water on Mars frozen at the poles, assuming liquid water. Right. I'm starting to see why Bible literalists would not want this book in the Bible. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. There are references to the circle of the earth as opposed to the sphere of the earth in the Bible. There are references to the foundations of the earth, and those I think are a little easier to dismiss, perhaps. This is pretty difficult to dismiss, I would say. So we're in chapter 19, and Uriel is one of the archangels, remember. Said to me, sorry, I'm going to take a drink. I am enjoying my breakfast in Paris tea. I did not plan the beret in the tea. And Uriel said to me, here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits assuming many different forms are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing demons as gods. Here they shall stand till the day of great judgment, in which they shall be judged till they are made an end of. And the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. And I, Enoch, alone saw the vision, the end of all things, and no man shall see as I have seen. All right. So what we are noticing is that this is where hell is. This is fire, right? It's not inside necessarily the depths of the earth or underground. This is a place of fire where everything is punished. including stars. Okay. And the Watchers are going to be here, and the women that they had defiled themselves with, so their wives, basically, they're becoming sirens. And so I'm sure many of you have heard of the sirens that sing sailors to their death. So I guess, Ratza, we do get those sea men, as in those sailors that we were talking about. This is where they show up, aren't we lucky? So this is a punishment for them. So they are not allowed to rest peacefully. So remember, that's what we had talked about before, in terms of Judgment Day. That is a day when all souls shall be judged at the same time, and then they will be sent to this hell type of place, or they will pass on to heaven, or they will go to the new earth. Okay, so whatever Yahweh had decided there. But remember, the sons, the giants, when they die, their souls now become demons on the earth. They are evil creatures on the earth, and they will not rest. So they don't have any kind of rest. They're going to wander around the earth, hurting people, and always hungering and always thirsting, but never being allowed to eat or drink. So they are stuck on earth in a type of hell, in that they're punished and not resting. And so now we also talk about the wives. The wives as well will now ascend or transmogrify into this being that will not get rest. So the sirens are, in a way, like an immortal being. And again, what are they doing? The same thing as these children are doing, which is to punish mankind. And remember, the Watchers love mankind. So this is, again, just another kind of insult to injury sort of thing. Finally, sailors, we have come full circle. Exactly. If the stars have free will, is this animism? I mean, right? Yeah. Wouldn't it be? Wouldn't it be? I didn't know Judaism had sirens, right? He sounds like Trump now. Yeah, speaking of, I'll post a link to it in the Discord, but I was listening to the Trump tape about Georgia, so that was interesting. I don't want to derail this and talk about politics, so we'll talk about it in the Discord. But yeah, speaking of, that was a very interesting thing. And I guess there are some sort of similarities there, that there's just this unreasonable type of leader trying to do things and twist things in his favor. The only difference here would be Yahweh would have that power. Yeah. So we're in chapter 20, and these are the names of the holy angels who watch, not the Watchers. I really wish they would have phrased it differently. So these are like the archangels, okay? Uriel, one of the holy angels who is over the world and over Tartarus. Okay, so where is, or what is Tartarus? Okay, that's something we should double check. Okay, so this is like, it's both the abyss area and also that torture area, okay? It does talk about Greek mythology, and remember, this is an overlapping kind of time period. So the people who are reading this would understand what that meant. It's sort of like how the name Apollo shows up and Hades shows up in the New Testament, for example. We can actually check it out here. I think it's a New Living Translation. No, New International Version. Come here, you. There we go. Oh, really? Okay. I know that Hades pops up. Here we are. Let's see. Where did I read Apollo from? Anyway, no, you will go down to Hades, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So this would make sense to the Greek people that were reading this, remember, they didn't have this concept of hell in the word, like the word that we use sort of today. Okay. Raphael, one of the holy angels who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Michael, or Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Sarakael, who is one of the holy angels who set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. Remael, one of the holy angels whom God set over those who rise. Okay, so these are just these name and functions of the 7 archangels, just sort of as this says up here. Okay, so they are introduced to us now. We see what power they have. I feel like a lot of these would have correspondences in like other polytheist type of religions. It's, yeah, there, you know, you can't argue that the Abrahamic religion is more polytheist than monotheist, just because I feel like it's almost cheating to say, oh yeah, no, we have one God and a bajillion angels that have different jobs. Oh, but they're not little gods. They're just angels. Like, you know, most of the polytheistic religions have a leader god or a king god or a queen god who can tell the other gods what to do, punish the other gods, and so forth. So that would be Yahweh, right? And these would be the other gods, and Yahweh would just be that leader god. So if you kind of read it in that context, that these are polytheist types of notions, then that starts to make a little bit more sense. Let's see. If you want to completely derail this study, I posted some photos in the pet channel. That's great. Interesting. You can't punish a plank. So these stars are sentient beings. It appears. I wouldn't go as far as to say that not from this context. And I'm not saying that, you know, we won't find out that the stars are sentient beings. I think the purpose of this would be to explain the wrath of Yahweh. So that way it could strike fear in anyone who is reading this, so that they may stay faithful and follow Yahweh's commandments. You know what I mean? To basically say, even the stars that don't even have the choices that you do, and they don't even have the same type of will and stuff that you do, even if they mess up, he punishes them good. You know, he's burning them. I mean, that's what I think. I think it's more to show, you know, again, if we think about that Godfather, that sort of, that mafia boss, if he tries to start his car and the car, I don't know, doesn't work, perhaps he left his lights on and the battery had drained or something like that, then he would show his wrath, that he's this wrathful, powerful being, by getting out of the car, getting a baseball bat, and just beating this car until it's just totally destroyed, because the car disobeyed him or made him look foolish or something like that. In reality, of course, it's his fault. He was the one driving the car. He left the lights on. There's an easy fix. He knows the fix. Just get a jump, or, you know, if it's a manual transmission, push it, pop the clutch, start it, let the alternator recharge the battery. It's not a big deal. But to show his wrath, to show how desperately unreasonable of a monster that he is to anyone who's witnessing it, he would just destroy this car with a baseball bat, just because it did something he didn't want it to do, even though it was his fault. And so that would be like, what hope do you have to talk him out of something if you cross him? If you do anything that this mafia boss says to not do, you have no hope of talking your way out of this, son, because he doesn't even show mercy to a car. The car is inanimate. He was the one that made the mistake, and he doesn't show mercy to a car. What hope do you have? And I think that's the idea here. Again, I could be wrong, and we might later read something together that does indicate that the stars are animate in some way. But I don't think that's what they're pointing to. I think they're just trying to show exactly how unreasonable and wrathful that this God is. Yeah. Let's see. Sirens, Tartarus, some Greek influence apparently. Yeah, For sure. I didn't know that Christianity borrowed from other cultures. Oh, they definitely did. Now I know there's that movie Zeitgeist or something that talks about Mithras and everything, and I no. The types of stuff about saying that Horus was born of a virgin and stuff. No, that's not the case. But there are some things that might have been similar in Christianity to other things, but also just to use the words at that time. And so that's what Hades was. It was this place everyone understood was where you go after you die, and there could be punishment there, or not, but there could be punishment there, and that's how it was talking about it. So I think it's interesting that they don't really not retranslate it, but I think put it into modern English. We would call that place hell. Why are they saying Hades? And so that was the thing I didn't really understand. And I had asked my pastors about it, the main pastor and the youth pastor. I had asked them about that. Why would they include Hades? Obviously I have an interest in religions. So I, was definitely interested in Greek mythology as a kid. And so I was like, why? Oh, well, it's because they were talking to Greek people and this made sense to Greek people. Oh, okay. So I would agree. I don't think that it's, trash apologetics to suggest that. But it is interesting that they didn't have their own word for it, But then again, why would they, right? If everybody understands that this is what you're talking about, why would you necessarily need to create another word for it, I Googled, I could try Apollos at the end, so not Apollo from Greek. Okay. And that, of course, was described to me as, those are just kind of names that people had. It was, Peter or Paul? I think it was Pete, one of the two. He was hanging out with this guy. Let's see. No Latifa or Laquisha. No, we got Raguel, Michael, Gabriel, but we're not going to get Latifa or Laquisha, just because the angels are male. So the angels are masculine. The concept of baby angels or female angels, that's not something that comes from the Abrahamic religions. Yeah, they're masculine for sure. Let's see, by the way, the female presenting things, those do exist. So as I said, the angels, when they take on human form, they're masculine. The ones that take on female form are demons. So if that kind of helps explain why some of the people maybe in the medieval ages, they had this belief that women were these overly sexual creatures that were here to derail men from their good and godly nature. And so that's one of the reasons that women are just inherently worse than men, and men are automatically more godly. It was this idea that women are naturally lustful and men are not, but the women are causing the men to be lustful because they are so lustful that it's easy for them to be seduced by Satan, and they have these wild sex parties with Satan, and they're trying to drag the men down, and the men have to be strong, godly men and fight off these disgusting women. So there was this idea of that definitely in the medieval ages, that men were basically sexual by function but not by nature, if that makes sense. They have a sex because that part of your body is called your sex. So they have a penis, they have a sex, but and that can be used to reproduce, but they don't really have any natural sexual desire. That any sexual desire in men is like a perversion, but sexual desire is part of a woman's nature, and so there was this concept of that. And so I think that definitely could have been influenced by the idea that angels are men in human form and demons are women in human form. So it's kind of an interesting concept, I think. Let's see, and I proceeded to where things were chaotic. And I saw, so here we are, by the way, preliminary and final place of the punishment for the fallen angels. And here it says stars, okay? Again, as I mentioned, we can think about them that way. There is an idea that that the stars are angels, right? That the points of light in the sky are angels. And I think this is actually reflected also in the Quran. That is, and that the falling stars are like missiles that the angels are throwing at demons as a type of punishment. There's this type of, not war, but sort of a celestial war, I suppose, that we can see when we see like a meteor or meteorite falling to the earth or something. But again, when we saw this, it appears that it's literally just talking about stars, right? Because every time that Enoch has been talking about the Watchers, he's been talking about them as the Watchers, or talking about them by name, Azazel, or so on, right? But when we talked about these stars, even here when we see 7 stars, right? We didn't have 7 stars. We had 11 Watchers, right? So this is why it seems that I would go with the reading of it. But again, I think this is open to your interpretation as well. But from where I'm sitting, I think this what I had mentioned about God being this, or Yahweh being this Godfather, where he's just totally wrathful, that sort of would still, I think, be a more, it makes more sense, I think, in that interpretation. And I saw there something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. This is really interesting because I've heard of a near-death experience, actually, of somebody kind of close to me. And they had mentioned that they were trapped in a glass box, and there was nothingness, but it was hot. And that was sort of an interesting concept, because now this goes very well here. But of course, that wouldn't make sense within this Abrahamic theology, where you are not judged until Judgment Day. So definitely a near-death experience would not send you to this place of chaos, right? Let's see. And there I saw seven stars of the heaven bound together in it like great mountains and burning with fire. And then I said, for what sin are they bound, and on what account have they been cast in hither? And then Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me and was chief over them, said, Enoch, why dost thou ask, and why art thou eager for the truth? These are the number of stars of heaven, which has transgressed the commandment of the Lord, and are bound here for 10,000 years. The time entailed by their sins are consummated. So again, I don't think it's talking about the Watchers. Remember, we have 11 Watchers, 12 Watchers. The commander, the 10 squad leaders under him, and then Azazel. So those would be the 11 or 12. But what I find kind of interesting is Uriel's response here, right? Why do you even ask? And why are you eager for the truth? Kind of an odd phrasing, right? Especially since we know that humans are punished repeatedly for knowledge and for trying to learn things, right? But basically Uriel is saying, look, you know that Yahweh makes his decisions, okay? Do not question it. That's what's being conveyed here. Let's see what you guys are saying. According to many Muslim leaders, women without hijab is inviting sexual aggression. So the concept of women being a sexual being is still alive. Sort of, yes. I think instead of women without hijab is inviting sexual aggression, I mean, I would say there is some of that belief, but not just inviting sexual aggression, but inciting sexual aggression. So this, again, you're right, would definitely be the idea of women being so overly sexual and lustful that they cause good men to lose themselves and become monsters of sexual aggression. That a woman wearing her appropriate clothing would be not causing men to sin, whereas a woman who's dressing in a way that might be more comfortable for her is causing men to sin. So I've always had a criticism of that, which would be, are you basically saying that women can control your actions, and that Muslim men are basically animals that just respond to things, almost as if you have I don't know, like a dog that you show a snack and the dog will jump over everything to get the snack, even though they are harming themselves in doing so, or even though they're making a destruction of their things in order to do so. So if I have a large dog, for example, and I have a snack, but to get to me from the snack, the dog ends up like destroying his food bowl and knocking over his water bowl to get to this snack. Is that what Muslim people think of Muslim men? You know, that they see a snack, they see, you know, a beautiful woman who is dressing in a way that she chooses to dress, and that they're going to destroy their relationship with Allah. They're going to stop their prayers. They're going to do all of this stuff because they just react. You know, it doesn't. I know it's supposed to say something negative about women and talk about how women have this ridiculous responsibility, you know, so to cover themselves so that men don't overreact or something. But what does it say about the men that seeing a shoulder exposed is going to cause them to whip into this frenzy where they throw out all of their beliefs about you know, piety and chastity and all of that? It just seems so insulting, I think, to Muslim men as well. Pavlov, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there are some weird ideas out there for sure. All right. So, and from thence I went to another place, which was still more horrible than the former, and I saw a horrible thing. A great fire there which burnt and blazed, and the place was cleft as far as the abyss, being full of great descending columns of fire. Neither its extent or magnitude I could see, nor could I conjecture. So again, we're looking that same place where, excuse me, I got the hiccups. The same kind of concept where Enoch was looking over the edge of the earth and saw these fiery columns holding up the earth and couldn't fathom how large these, or how far these columns went down, just had no concept. Same sort of idea. But instead now it's this huge abyss, it's a huge canyon that he sees. And so again, we're seeing these like fiery columns. Then I said, how fearful is this place and how terrible to look upon. You know, think about that. Enoch has seen a lot of stuff up at this point, right? And he sees this. This is sort of, when I read this, I feel like if you've ever been in a place that's really, really, really high up, but you've looked down and you get filled with a fear, like, oh, I'm so scared that I'm going to fall or something. Or if you watch a movie and the character is looking over something and you're like, oh, I'm so scared for this character, and you get filled with this kind of like fear, anxiety on behalf of the character because you're afraid the character is going to fall down. The camera work was done really well. You have sort of this perspective of looking down this cliff or something. Enoch probably feels he's safe, so he's, you know, like the person viewing the movie, he's not afraid that he's going to fall in, but he's still being filled with this fear of, what if I fell in? You know, what a concept to think of. Then Uriel answered me, one of the holy angels who was with me, and said to me, Enoch, why hast thou such fear and affright? And I answered, because of this fearful place, and because of the spectacle of the pain. And he said unto me, this place is the prison of angels, and here will they be imprisoned forever. So I think it kind of shows a disconnection in some ways of the archangels and humans, you know, that this is something that any human would understand, that Enoch is looking at this and thinking, this is a scary place, he's filled with fear. Any human would be filled with fear. And Uriel's like, what, why are you worried about that? He's like, because it's scary, you know? So it's, you know, Enoch looks at this scary thing and says, oh my gosh, this is scary. And Uriel's like, why are you scared? Because it's scary. Okay, well, this is where the angels go, the watchers, they go here. Yeah, I'm just trying to, you know, conceptualize this interaction, just how disconnected Uriel is from anything human. This is sort of interesting, so we're going to read E on the way down, and then we're going to read G G as well, okay? This is a bit of a different sort of translation. All right. So the first reading, the E reading. And thence I went to another place, and he showed me in the west another great and high mountain, and of hard rock. Actually, you know what? Let's just read them together. And in it, and there was in it 4 hollow places, deep and wide and very smooth. How smooth are the hollow places, and deep and dark to look at. The G version says, and there were 4 hollow places in it, deep and very smooth. 3 of them were dark and 1 bright, and there was a fountain of water in its midst. And I said, how smooth are these hollow places, how deep and dark to view. Okay. Why are we talking about how smooth they are? You cannot climb out. Okay, that's the big fearful thing about that smooth depth there. Let's see what you guys are writing. Uriel isn't scared because he's used to working there. Correct. He also knows he's not going there. But I think even if you... I don't know. I would say even if you're a person who's used to working in a place, you would say something like, yeah, no, I'm just used to it now, but I was scared of it the first few times I saw it. Something like that. But Uriel seems to have no concept of why any human would be fearful. This is a place for those watchers. It's not for you, man. Like, why is it scary? Like, it's scary. It's just, it's a bunch of fire. Like, it's a scary place, you know? Then Raphael answered, sorry. And I said, remember, so he's mentioning how smooth and hollow and deep and dark. So Raphael is responding to this. These hollow places have been created for this very purpose, and that the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein. Yeah, that all the souls of the children should assemble there, and these places have been made to receive them till the day of their judgment, until their appointed period, till the period appointed, till the great judgment comes upon them. So these are an interesting kind of concept, because this diverges from the belief of your soul kind of hanging out in the body and resting. So this would be like a holding cell for people, essentially, like a waiting room for Judgment Day. We're going to read the E version of verse 5 and 6. I saw the spirits of children of men who were dead, and their voice went forth to heaven and made suit. Then I asked Raphael, the angel who was with me, and I said unto him, this spirit, whose is it whose voice goeth forth and maketh suits? Okay, we're not talking about making suits. We're talking about making a case, shouting to heaven, saying, "Hey, you know, why am I here? I shouldn't be here." That kind of thing. The G version is, I saw the spirit of a dead man making suit, and his voice went forth to heaven and made suit. Again, he's trying to make a case for himself. And I asked Raphael, the angel who was with me, and I said unto him, the spirit which maketh suit, whose is it, whose voice goes forward to heaven? And he answered me, the spirit went forth from Abel, whom his brother Cain slew, and he makes the suit against him till his seed is destroyed from the face of the earth, and his seed is annihilated from amongst the seed of men. So if you were concerned when I was reading this and I said the souls are here, and you might have wondered, well, which souls? Is it every soul? This seems like a very scary place for every soul. Surely you only mean the souls that are being punished. As we can see here, Abel, you know, God found favor in Abel, and his life was cut short by his brother Cain. He didn't really do anything wrong, right? There's nothing we saw of that story that shows that Abel should be punished in any type of negative afterlife, yet he's being held here. So this appears to just be the waiting room, you know, kind of thing. The E version says, then I, Enoch, asked regarding it, and regarding all the hollow places, why is one separated from the other? And he answered me and said to me, these 3 have been made that the spirits of the dead might be separated, and such a division has been made for the spirits of the righteous, in which there are bright spring water. And as such has been made for sinners when they die and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed on them in their lifetime. Here their spirits shall be set apart from this, or in this great pain, till the day of judgment, and punishment and torment of those who curse forever and ever, and retribution for their spirits. There he shall bind them forever. And such a division has been made for the spirits of those who are making their suit, who make disclosures concerning their destruction when they were slain in the days of sinners. Such has been made for the spirits of the men who were not righteous, but sinners, who were complete in transgression, and of the transgressors. And they shall be companions, but their spirits shall not be slain in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from thence. Then I blessed the Lord of glory and said, Blessed be my Lord, the Lord of righteousness, who ruleth forever. That last part is like a fearful thing to say. I hope you understand that. So if we read G, we're talking very similarly, okay? So there's one section that is separated for people who were righteous and dead. There's another section for people who were awful, but they died without being punished for their crimes. So perhaps you had like a serial killer among you, and that person had died free, and nobody knew who this person was. That person's soul goes into this other section where they end up it appears that they receive some type of punishment until judgment. And then when judgment happens, there's other stuff that happens after that. Let's see. And then there's places for other people who make disclosures concerning their destruction when they were slain in the days of sinners. So they were basically, it talks about them as being people who are godless. They were sinful in some manner, but it appears that they paid for their crime on earth. So at that time period, while they're waiting for judgment, they're not being punished. So there's a section for righteous people who have died. There's a section for people who have who did some kind of bad thing and were punished on earth, usually like death penalty kind of punishment. They're here, and they're just here waiting. And then there's another section for people that had done some terrible thing, and in their lifetime they didn't pay for that crime. They're paying for that crime until Judgment Day. So there's those three sections. Two of them, they're just a waiting room, and the third one is this like awful place to be. So that's sort of an interesting thing. The first person killed is in waiting. That's a slow waiting room. Right. Abel is still hanging out, saying, "Hey, you gonna judge us yet?" Can you just imagine the sound coming from this abyss, right? Just the noise. When do you give up? When do you stop saying, you guys are here until judgment, okay? Just chill out. When do you stop complaining? Do you know what I mean? Do you keep track of it? And like, all right, well, now we have another 100 people. Now I'm gonna try. Hey, God, yeah, we're still collecting souls. You gonna judge me yet? No. Okay. And then you wait for another 100 souls. Or are you just constantly saying hello? When do you give up? I feel like at this time in history, perhaps Abel would probably have given up a while ago. They're just waiting there for Judgment Day. That sounds a bit like limbo. Sort of. I would say the idea of limbo or like purgatory is it is after judgment. So if you were quite sinful, you were judged, and then you are sentenced to hell. If you were quite righteous, you are judged and then sentenced to heaven. And if you're sort of neither, or you were a baby and you couldn't be baptized and you died, you were judged and sentenced to this limbo or purgatory. So this is a little bit of a different place. This is the waiting room. Yeah. Kind of an interesting place here. The fire that deals with the luminaries of heaven. From thence I went to another place, to the west of the ends of the earth, and I saw a burning fire which ran without resting, and paused not from its course day or night, but ran regularly. And I asked, saying, What is this that rests not? And Raguel, one of the holy angels who was with me, answered me and said to me, This course of fire, which thou hast seen, is the fire in the west, which persecutes all the luminaries of heaven. So this is a sort of an interesting place, right? This is in the west ends of the earth for some reason. And it's just a fire that's burning. And it seems to be running and not pausing from its course. So it appears to be this moving type of fire, and it persecutes the luminaries of heaven. Are these the angels, or are we going to find out that these are planets? So what is this that we're talking about? God's waiting rooms. So Florida, perhaps. I guess you can imagine all three of those people, those types of people hanging out there. The 7 mountains in the northwest and the tree of life. So this is chapter 14. We've got 15 and 16. Or 15 we're going to stop, right? Is that where we're stopping? Is 15? I'm sorry, let me just double, or not 15, sorry, 25. Yes, we're stopping at 25. All right. And from thence I went to another place of the earth, and he showed me a mountain range of fire which burnt day and night. And I went beyond it and saw 7 magnificent mountains, all differing from each other, and the stones thereof were magnificent and beautiful, magnificent as a whole, of glorious appearance and fair exterior. 3 towards the east, one founded on the other, and 3 towards the south, one upon the other, and deep rough ravines, no one of which joined with the other. And the 7th mountain was in the midst of these, and it excelled them in height, resembling the seat of a throne, and the fragrant trees encircled the throne. So let's stop for a second. Okay, so we have these mountains that are 3 mountains, and then 1 mountain in the middle. And it appears that these 3 mountains are actually on top of each other or within each other. They're sharing a foundation or founded upon each other. And then the 7th one is in the middle, and it's bigger than any of these. So if we're looking at them as a mountain on top of a mountain on top of a mountain, it's quite tall, right? So the one in the middle is even taller than that. So it's just kind of to show the excessive height that we're looking at here. And these fragrant trees are encircling this giant mountain, which appears as a throne. And amongst them was a tree, such as I had never yet smelt, neither was it amongst them, nor were others like it. It had a fragrance beyond all fragrance, and its leaves and blooms and wood wither not forever. And its fruit is beautiful, and its fruit resembles the dates of a palm. Then I said, how beautiful is this tree, and fragrant, and its leaves are fair, and its blooms very delightful in appearance. And then answered Michael, one of the holy and honored angels who was with me and was their leader. So we're hearing the answer. And he said unto me, Enoch, why dost thou ask me regarding the fragrance of this tree? And why dost thou wish to learn the truth? Again, very strange, right? Why are you asking questions and trying to learn things? Then I answered him, saying, I wish to know about everything, but especially this tree. And he answered, saying, this high mountain which thou hast seen, whose summit is like the throne of God, is his throne, where the Holy One, the Lord of glory, the eternal King, will sit when he shall come down to the earth to visit the earth with goodness. And as for this fragrant tree, no mortal is permitted to touch it till the great judgment, when he shall take vengeance on all and bring everything to its consummation forever. It then shall be given to the righteous and holy. Its fruit shall be for food to the elect, and it shall be transplanted to the holy place, to the temple of the eternal King. So, interesting, right? This mountain looks as if it's a throne, and it is a throne, but, we learned about that weird crystal fire throne that Enoch had witnessed Yahweh sitting upon, right? We already talked about that. That's his celestial throne. This is his throne when the new earth happens. So on the day of judgment, on that Armageddon final kind of everything is over and now you're all going to be judged and sent off to burn with the watchers or to go into the heavens or to enjoy life on this new earth. That's when he's going to physically sit down on this mountain throne that's on the earth. And then people will be enjoying this food. It kind of reminds me of ambrosia, doesn't it? This special food that humans are not really supposed to be eating. It's for the gods. So it kind of reminds me about that a little bit. Then shall they rejoice with joy and be glad, and into the holy place they shall enter, and its fragrance shall be in their bones, and they shall live a long life on earth, such as their fathers lived, and in their days shall no sorrow or plague or torment or calamity touch them. Then I bless the God of glory, the eternal King, who hath prepared such things for the righteous, and hath created them and promised to give to them. it's interesting. Remember the date tree, and the dates as a thing. These are like one of the sweetest things that you can enjoy at this time period. So we're not getting sugar. Honey is available, but for the average person, dates are a lot more widely available as something to enjoy, this special treat, this kind of sweet, delicious thing to have. And so now when Enoch sees what appears to be like a date, but even better, that's what we have to kind of imagine. I know that we can kind of forget just how special these things used to be because we have access to so many things. I can order dates right now from the internet, even though, well, Korea has a type of date, but it's very different from the very sweet medjool date from this region that Enoch is used to, this West Asia region. But we have to remember that in Enoch's time, they didn't have this access, right? Yeah, you know, the Silk Road, whatever, but they didn't have this kind of access where the most perfect, delicious, sweet, fragrant fruit is readily available. And if it was, wow, that's a once in a lifetime thing. And so now he's being told this perfection in fruit form will be yours to eat forever and ever and ever. As much as you like, as often as you like. It's for you and other righteous people like you. That's a big deal. You know, that's a big deal. We can talk about how, yeah, peace is nice, and of course it is, you know, but for something so simple as eating, so simple and so routine, because obviously we have to eat every single day, you know, it's for something so simple and routine to be exquisite beyond measure. Now imagine the rest of your existence in this beautiful place. If the most mundane thing, which is eating food, just taking in sustenance and consuming calories, if that most mundane thing is now elevated to this most perfect and delicious thing, imagine how wonderful the rest of your life is. You know, so that's sort of what we're being told here about this, that even something as basic as going outside and seeing a tree, it fills you with delight, that its fragrance permeates your existence to your very bones, and that just existing in this place and having a snack is beyond any loveliness you would ever encounter on earth. How much greater the rest of your existence is going to be in this place, right? So that's what we have to remember about this. It's not, oh, it's a tree. Oh, it looks tasty. It's so much more than that, right? That's Hawaii. Yeah, it could be. Is this the same tree they didn't get to eat from in the garden? It does not explain that. And it doesn't explain why it's going to be good, other than the fact that this is a tree for you guys to enjoy once you are in this beautiful afterlife, right? So we're not, it doesn't make any reference to that. Could it be? Possibly. But so far there's no reference to that. But that's, it does kind of lend itself to think of that, right? It's this special tree, you're not supposed to eat it right now. Surely this must be a reference. It might be, but as we see it here, it doesn't really explain that. Yeah. And Enoch, of course, because he's a good guy, he's a righteous guy, he doesn't make any petition like, well, you know, is it okay if I just touch it? Can I go get a closer inspection? He's like, wow, blessed be to Yahweh, you are super awesome, you know. So he's doing his part as the obviously righteous man. So he's not being tricky or anything. So it's kind of interesting. So this is where we're going to stop. If you guys have any questions, please let me know if you have any like last minute questions before we end. I hope you enjoyed this. It's an interesting place that he has witnessed for sure. And I mean, let's think of his journey just in these past few chapters, right, that we talked about today. He saw the ends of the earth and the origin points for all things, all basic things on the earth: fire, water, lightning, that sort of thing. He saw the foundations of the earth. He saw the firmament of the earth. He saw this horrible place where the Watchers will be tormented. He saw the celestial waiting room for all souls, and which types of souls have to wait where and why. And then he sees not the end of like the beautiful area, which is interesting, right? We haven't seen that yet. But he sees at least a glimpse of it, which is this tree. So it's kind of an interesting concept. So the next stream. So when I have to go back to work, the streams are probably going to be around this time once a week. But for right now, when I don't have to go to work, I would like to make the streams a little bit more regular. Maybe tomorrow. I mean, tomorrow if we can. And then I would like to do another stream after this one, just so we can talk about the geography. So if you guys want to hang out and talk about geography, that's what we'll do next, because I have some time and I'm not feeling too bad. So that's my idea, is to make a geography stream right after this. So if you guys want to hang out, Heaven's Door says use other door. Yeah, basically. Under construction. That's, you know, it's kind of interesting. We don't get to see that just yet, right? So we've seen everything else, but we don't get to see, you know, this most glorious place for souls. We got to see where God actually hangs out on his throne, which is this fearsome looking place. So that's it. Now check the amazing photo I posted in Pets. Humble brag. Well, you know, rats, I always like seeing your rats, so that's always a good time. Alright, we'll go ahead and end this. Like I said, there will be another live stream after this. I'll post about it in the Discord and probably on the... What am I thinking? The channel, community channel thing. I'll make a mention of that. I'll probably start the live stream just so people are able to see it and then jump in later. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it'll be soon. It'll be like within the next 10 minutes. Okay. Limbo has 2 doors. They both say use the door. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Alright. So for those of you guys that are in Western Europe, yeah, go to bed. We are having a live stream, but it's geography. I don't know how interested you are in geography. Alright. I will see you later. Have a good day, and hopefully see you guys tomorrow. Assuming I don't have a migraine. I'm hoping this is the end of my 5-day on-again, off-again migraine, so let's hope. Alrighty, 5, no, 7. Oh my goodness. Anyway, see you later. Adios. Bye-bye.